straw, the longest straw to start first. Yes.
Thanks, Mark. Great introduction. Appreciate that. Keep it short and sweet. That's perfect. Also, I think we just did this in June, and I think John Brewer both times scheduled us, and I see that he's not here again today, so seems like might need I'll give him a hard time. But it is great to be in front of Kiwanis. A couple of things I'd like to point out. The 24th Legislative District, of which you're all a member of, all of Jefferson County, Clallam County, and well over half of Grace Harbor County now. I'm going to give a shout out. You are part of a legislative district. There's 49 in the state, and you had the #1 voter turnout in the primary. In fact, we dominated most legislative districts, and we are consistently the #1 or #2 voter participation in both the primary and the general. And if you go back 10 years like I have, it's very consistent between the general and the primary. We're 1 or 2. We also have, right now that I can tell, the latest numbers I saw, we have more registered voters for this legislative district than any in the state, and though we're all about the same size. So we have a huge participation in our democracy, and so days like today, they're kind of your Norman Rockwell moment. It's a small town Kiwanis Club with a couple of candidates running for office. Some things I'm grateful for, specifically to Port Angeles, because I know this is the Port Angeles Kiwanis Club. And I'm really grateful we were able to see a brand new Boys and Girls Club built up there by the Housing Authority, and really honored to have a part in that, secure some state funds for such a phenomenal facility. You drive by Lincoln Street, what do you see? A world-class swimming pool now. And the state had a role in that. And I, as a county commissioner before that, had a role in that. You as taxpayers had a role in that. We can be very proud of that facility. You drive downtown on the waterfront, and what are you seeing built? A world-class. Will be top, Brooke does nothing, his team does nothing but the very best performing arts center right on the water. And the state's been a partner in that. And I've had a hand in helping to secure those funds. As you saw, Brooke met my year. He may need a little help next year, and I'd be prepared to help him secure those funds. Soon, we'll be breaking ground on a brand new Elwha River Bridge, the main east-west corridor between here and the West End. And I was able to secure $32 million of a new appropriation for that bridge. And down the road, we'll be improving the swim to Blinn corridor. Another $30 million appropriation for this district that my work on the Transportation Committee secured. Finally, as the chair of the Rural Development, Ag and Natural Resource Committee, I have received support from the ag community throughout this state. I didn't know until I was chair of this committee, there's something called the wheat pack, and the cattle pack, and the grape pack, and the tree growers pack. All groups that generally don't like my party. Generally, don't think my party helps them, but they have found that I have been a friend, and that my committee has been a friend to our farmers. Why is that important? Because I've heard from the wheat farmers that when they're farming wheat right now, you know what's on their mind? They want to bring as much wheat to harvest in order to lower the cost of inflation for food, and I've been a great partner. Mark says I'm out of time. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here, and I appreciate the invitation back again. As Mike said, we were here in June. I want to give kudos to you as a club for what you're doing. You help kids, and you were the first club here. You helped other clubs start up and grow, and our children are our future, and it is so important. Last time as you were here, you heard me talk about how Mike has voted to raise taxes, regulations, that we have the transportation budget that's bringing in new fees. We have a $15 billion surplus that instead of going back to the taxpayers as it should have, or at least some of it, got spent for more programs. I want to take us back for a minute today to our childhood and what things were like when we were kids. I don't know about you, but I had great teachers in my schools. We learned to read, write, and do math. We learned the basics. We learned that when there were a mix of races, which I was raised in Southern Nevada, we had a heavy Hispanic population there. We all got along. We didn't see each other's skin color. We just were kids and we played. Today that's changed drastically. Today we have a 70% fail rate on our testing for our kids in math. We have a 52% fail rate for our kids in writing and reading. Science is low. All of them, we're below what other countries are doing. That's scary for our future and for our children. Our children instead are being taught, it's been integrated, sex education from kindergarten through 12th grade. Mike voted for that. We have a situation where we're being taught that some groups are more important than other groups. And Mike voted for that. 3 bills, as a matter of fact. The most recent one that I learned about, which was in 2019, passed in 2019 and voted on by Mike and the majority Democrat Party, no votes from the Republicans, was gender affirming surgery. And this means that if a child, 13 years or older, decides that they feel like they might be a boy or they feel like they might be a girl, can go and get surgery, from a hysterectomy to breast alteration, whatever, without their parents' knowledge or permission, and using their parents' insurance policy without the parents' permission.
So wrong.
It is so wrong, and I'll continue this in a minute because my time's up.
Okay, Mike, we can,
Yeah, I raised 2 boys here in the Port Angeles School District, and then they both went on to college. One works at Olympic Medical Center. One just finished his service to our country in the Army. I think they got a phenomenal education. I think Marty and the school district does a great job, and I just don't believe that our teachers aren't doing everything they possibly can in the school district to provide a tremendous education. This community was so beneficial for my family and my kids. And I think you as Port Angeles residents can be proud of my 2 sons, Larson and Anders, who grew up here, were raised here in this community, graduated from PA High School. My younger son, Peninsula, he went on to play, he went on to the UW. My older son went to play baseball. He works for Olympic Medical Center. You know, this denigration of our teachers has got to stop. And I know teachers, and I know our education system, and I know Marty's pouring his heart into trying to figure out a way to make sure our teachers stay in their classroom because that's where they belong and that's where they want.
So Mike's right. His boys were raised during a time that this was not in effect. This has taken effect within the last 4 or 5 years while Mike's been in the legislature. I believe that the answer to this problem, and I am not denigrating teachers by any means because I know a ton of teachers and they are good teachers. It's not the teaching system, it's the policy. It's the policy that's come down from Olympia. They're required to teach these things. I believe school choice is the answer, where the money follows the child for their best education. And I believe that will get us some competition between the public school system and private schools, homeschooling, vo-tech schools, that type of thing. This is being instituted across the country. It's not a new idea. It's not my idea. I've done a lot of research on it, though, because I've taught in a private school and I've homeschooled as well. And I've seen the results of that as compared to kids that, not all kids, because some come through fine, but a lot of the children come out and do not have the education they need to succeed in today's world. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with questions, mainly from the Kiwanians first, and then any guests that are in here that want to have questions, you can come on also. So, have we got any questions?
Mark, do you want me to manage the mic or?
I Thank you, sir. Question? And sir, you answer first, okay?
Now, I know that we've done a better job of funding our education system in the last 4 or 5 years, but I also, especially when you look at Florida and other places, which are actually states that have once lived in, what are we going to do though about the inequality between King County and Jefferson County and Clallam County in terms of money coming into our system in financials?
Well, under the idea of school choice or the money follows the child, that would help resolve that situation because that will help children in lower income areas and rural areas as much as it will in the cities. If, for instance, you have a $7,000 voucher per child, and the average private school runs about $3,500 to $7,000, somewhere in that range, the parents would have the funding to be able to put their money, put their child into a private school and get a great education. We also have charter schools, and we have limited charter schools, however, because the legislature, Mike's legislature, has limited the number of charter schools across the state. And those have proven very successful. There's waiting lists to get into those charter schools.
I don't know if there's a limit on time for answering, so I can keep talking.
This is what's wrong with politics. Yesterday, I met with the lobbyists for the Charter School Association, and not only did they endorse my campaign, they gave me a campaign contribution, and if you look at the PDC, you'll see that I received money from the Charter Schools Association. I support charter schools. They wouldn't endorse me. They wouldn't give me money if I hadn't helped them. The issue is the initiative, which allowed 40 charter schools within 5 years, and we only set up about 20. And there's 20 that 5-year period has run, and the legislature, many of us in the legislature are trying to extend that period, and truth be told, there's not the support right now to extend that. But I have not only been working on funding charter schools, I've been endorsed by the Charter Schools Association. So that's what's wrong with politics. This gotcha. We all hate that, right? I'm a Democrat, I'm against charter schools, I'm bad. It's not true. It's not true. If you want to know who supports me, look where my funding comes from. It's a lot of good groups that are doing good things around the state. So let's just not have gotcha moments. Let's be factual.
Initiatives can be overturned by the legislature after 2 years. So because if Mike has been for charter schools, apparently his voice is not strong enough to bring about enough votes from the Democrats to make that move forward. And he is a member of the Democrat Party, which is in the majority. What we need in Olympia is balance. We need to have some balance between Republicans and Democrats, so there's a voice from both sides coming forward, instead of one size fits all from one party who's in absolute control and has been for 16 years as a one-party system. Thank you.
So on a
You want to respond, Mike?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. People don't believe me, but again, the fact is, the school funding, which was your original question, was a Republican bill. And the Republicans liked the new formula. I don't think it's worked as well as they thought, but it was to equalize funding across the state. And it was to bring money from King County and help the rural communities where a lot of Republicans represent. The school funding has not worked as well. We have continued to improve it. We've tried to improve it. The sad part is the original bill was bipartisan. It was a Republican bill. It raised your property taxes. But since then, school funding has devolved into a partisan argument. And there have been many of us that have been disappointed. I've actually voted no on some of the funding. I voted no on the original funding measure. But it's a tricky issue, and it's part of our breakdown. I'll admit, we're a little too partisan in Olympia lately. Though 95% of our legislation passes with bipartisan majorities, during COVID and lockdowns and all that, we're going to get back. We'll get back to working together like we did before. I'm confident of that.
Another question?
I'm going to follow up to that one, if I could.
All right, Marty.
So I appreciate the question. I'd like to drill down a little bit deeper on that issue. So I think what maybe was getting at, the question is this concept of regionalization. And that's the original bill. And this school district is on the verge of a strike that will destroy our community for 5 to 10 years. And the frustrating part for me as the school superintendent is the inequities that we see in state resources. Because that original bill came through with what was called regionalization. And regionalization came in the form of 18%, 12%, or 6% for districts, or 0 across the state. Those districts that qualified for 18% are typically in King County, typically in Kitsap County, they're in Snohomish County, they're in the big metropolitan areas, typically, not always. A school district like Port Angeles is a 0 regionalization district competing with SWIM, which has regionalization, competing with Jefferson County schools, which have regionalization, competing with Kitsap schools that have regionalization. We're on the verge of a strike because we don't have the resources that other school districts have, but our teachers and our staff expect to be paid that money. So I would like to know very specifically, like, how can you help address that inequity of funding for public education, not around charter schools, and that's school choice, I get that, but how can we address the inequities that are happening across the state of Washington with school funding?
Well, one of the things we did do, and I look at folks, if you don't hear the frustration in his voice, you're not human today. This is an important issue. I apologize that you're in this position. I'll take my share of 148 members in the 149 members of the legislature. I'll take my share of responsibility. I think that 2 things we have done, but it probably didn't generate as much money, is we've tried to leave timber dollars that are harvested within your school district boundaries. We've tried to keep those dollars here. It's been a hell of a fight with the budget appropriations, I'll just be honest. They want that money to go into the whole school construction fund, but we've tried to do that. That's definitely helped. I have supported lowering, some of the votes that you have to take so that you can lower some of the levy level, lower the percentages. But our community is stuck. 60% is pretty hard to get. And then finally, I think we just continue. Again, it's been partisan the last few sessions. These bills have been partisan. We've got to continue to listen and work together to get back to the bipartisan model that we started with initially. But your frustration is certainly felt, and I'll take my share of the responsibility for that. And yeah, I haven't been able to convince every one of my Democratic colleagues to put my district first. I do my best, and I get a lot. I do make some impact in my caucus, and I genuinely help put my district first. But I can't convince them all. They have their districts.
Okay, so
Well, it doesn't take persuading them all. And you're right, we do need balance in the legislature. That's why we need to elect some Republicans to provide that balance and give a better balance of voice. I am against regionalization, number one. I think that all politics are local. We should operate on a local level. We should not be top down. And to me, that's my understanding of regionalization. Money should go to each school equally as far as what the needs are based on the number of students and the staff. I mean, it's pretty simple math. I think that there's a play here of the unions, the WEA and some of the other unions maybe, and some of the special interest groups in the I-5 corridor to persuade by donating money to campaigns the majority party in voting this way. I would need to verify that, but I'm strongly suspicious of that. Because why else would they not, appropriate equally where needed? And our rural areas really need it. The other issue, of course, is the state lands and the money that we should be getting from the state lands. And that's a whole side issue, but that's one that really needs to be addressed here because we're not getting the money that we should be getting for our school district from the timber industry and our state trust lands. And that was set out in the Constitution, so we should be following it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Anthony?
Third question, anybody?
Next.
Okay.
I'll keep it general. What to you is the single most important issue in the state and or our district?
Sue, you want to start?
How can you point to one when there are so many?
Priorities.
So I will prioritize. I think number one, we need to help people financially because so many people are hurting. And by reducing taxes, by reducing regulations, by getting government more out of the way so that people can start up businesses and operate businesses without having the heavy hand of government. And it's grown too big. We need to bring that size down. Number two, we need to address our law enforcement issue. You know, we have a growing homeless problem, we've got a growing drug problem, we've got a growing problem where police officers have their hands tied, and I know Mike has voted for on our side on that issue. However, we still have problems, and again, the voice has not been strong enough to get more of the people on the Democrat side to vote our way, to help our police officers help protect us. And third, and you've heard me talking about it, is our education system. Our children are crucial. Our children are our future. And we're hurting them in so many ways right now and the way things are run. And that has to change. And I am a voice for that because I strongly support our kids. We need to save them. Thank you.
Yesterday I was down in Aberdeen for the opening of the Quinault MAC Clinic, much like the Jamestown MAC Clinic. And access to healthcare throughout rural communities, I think, continues to be, and those clinics are phenomenal points right in those communities where they need help, where they need services. Certainly for people that are addicted to drugs, they're going to come in, they're going to get treatment, we're going to get them, help them get on their road to recovery. We have secured for 2 budget cycles in a row a direct appropriation to both Grace Harbor Community Hospital and Olympic Medical Center to drive down healthcare costs. I met yesterday with the director of the Grace Harbor Community Hospital, and that has kept a wing open of nurses, that direct appropriation from the state. And they're the only 2 sole community hospitals in the state that get a direct appropriation. So this argument that I don't do anything for the district is just not true. I think I actually do make it was an important appropriation. And finally, we've got to continue to protect people's right to choose what health care they need. We need to protect a woman's right to choose in this state. We will continue to do that. We're one of the stronger states on that issue. And I think that's been an issue that people are very concerned about, where they lose rights that they currently have. But at in this district is access to health care, which continues to be a big issue.
Next, I got a question.
Okay.
Well, let's see, Governor Inslee has stated or said that the state should be banning gasoline, fuel cars, or all vehicles by 2035. California's got it on 2030. So the question is, do you agree with that, or do you think that this is a little bit difficult to do? And we can start with Mike on this one.
Well, I think the manufacturers are telling you that's what they're going to do. Most major manufacturers have now set their own goals, and this is where their R&D is going. This is where the future is going. You're not going to see a lot of manufacturers roll out new versions of internal combustion engines. I think California led the way. We put it in as an aspirational goal in our budget, in our transportation budget. I think the reality is this is what's going to be on the market. In fact, the car dealership model is really changing. Now people can go online, order their car, have it delivered. They don't even, there's not a lot of cars sitting on lots anymore. It's almost a direct to build. And you look at where people want to be, they're going to want to. There's an interesting debate, right? Everybody's mad at $4 and $5 a gallon gas, and then everybody's mad because we might mandate electric vehicles. So I guess I think the manufacturers are going to bring to market what sells. Do I think all internal combustion engines will be banned by 2035? No. I think there'll always be a need for internal combustion engines, especially heavy equipment like PUD uses and construction companies. I mean, you just can't electrify everything. But I do think the marketplace will determine it, and the world's changing. People, have you driven one? Who's driven an electric vehicle? Let me tell you, when you drive one, you're like, why am I driving a gas engine? The torque and the horsepower are phenomenal. I drove in a Nissan Leaf, and the thing was, you got to be careful. It throws you right back in the seat. I mean, they're sporty as hell. So I think that's, when people start driving them, you'll realize how quiet. 20 moving parts in an electric vehicle motor versus 2,000 in an internal combustion engine. Plug and play, no fluids, no oil changes. The only fluid that I could find was the windshield washer. I say all that, and earlier this year I bought a Jeep, so go figure.
So how much of
I was just gonna ask you if you owned one.
Can't afford it.
I'm totally opposed. I am totally opposed to this move to all electric vehicles by 2035. I mean, all we have to do is look down to California and see what's going on down there. They're asking people not to charge their electric vehicles because they're concerned about brownouts. You know, that's our future if we continue down this path. There's problems with electric vehicles right now. I talked to a fireman who told me that the engines catch fire fairly easily, and it's almost impossible to put those fires out. He told me about 2 cases where they had to actually come in and lift up the vehicle and dump it into a huge bin and let it sit there for, I think it was 12 hours, I'm not sure of the time factor, but it was a long time before that fire went out. So there's a danger there. There's just so many issues with electric vehicles at this moment in time. You know, it should be, if we're going to go to electric vehicles, it should be a slow process. Find out, try it in a small area, see if it works. And as far as the manufacturers are concerned, they're being forced by the heavy-handed government to do this. Governor Inslee has said, if you don't go to electric vehicles, you are invited to leave our state. You can't build here. So there's just too many problems with it right now, so I am against the governor's push to have this done by 2030 or 2035. And I know that they're talking about having all new vehicles electric, and then down the road having all vehicles electric. And so it's just unacceptable to me, especially when they're talking about taking down Snake River dams that provide about 8% of our power, and the electric vehicles rely on power to be charged. So go figure. Thank you.
Okay, we got time for one more question.
Can I just have a quick follow-up on that? If this was not, like, why is Tesla one of the most valuable companies in the world? Why is Elon Musk the richest guy in the world? It wasn't SpaceX, it's Tesla. And the profit that he makes every quarter as he cranks out these electric cars that he can't sell fast enough. Heavy-handed government, Washington state legislature exempted Tesla from the dealership model so he could sell vehicles in our state. We reduced regulations so Tesla could enter the marketplace. And finally, if you know anything, if you follow anything about the big 3 automakers, Maribara at GM and Farley at Ford, they are making Tesla, the guy running Ford, he has made Elon Musk his personal enemy. I mean, Ford is all in on electric vehicles. The F-150 Lightning will be probably, they won't be able to build them fast enough, and the GM's Hummer, all electric, 1,000 horsepower, 4-wheel drive. Unbelievable vehicles that our manufacturers in America are cranking out. Our men and women, there's American-made companies, they're going to be American-made vehicles, and America is the leader in these vehicles, and they are going to be unbelievable sellers for these corporations. What a state legislator thinks is nothing. What Mr. Farley and Mary Barr at GM and Ford think, watch where they put their R&D money. They're the ones driving this conversion.
Oh, I would love to get into this conversation, but I'm not running. I just say electric vehicles are an environmental disaster waiting, but I'm going to stop there. Mike, the last time you were here, we were talking about the homeless situation, and you made a quick reference to Western State and how they were phasing it out. And I've been thinking about that ever since you said it. Can you elaborate on that, please? Because if you guys are phasing out Western, and you're saying that the homeless problem has a lot to do with people who really need help at Western, it doesn't compute for me. So I would love for you to expand and Sue for you to comment on this situation as well.
Tracy, you can start.
We need Western, and we need some other institutions like that, because we have a situation, a horrible situation, thanks to the open borders. And we're a sanctuary state, which, by the way, Mike voted for. We have a horrible situation with fentanyl, in particular, coming across our borders. And it's totally, totally destructive. It's horrendous. As a result of that, some of the young people primarily that take that drug end up with pretty much brain dead, from what I've been told by some experts. So what do you do with those people? We need institutions that can take care of them in a humane way through the rest of their life. And I don't think you can do that with temporary programs like what they're trying to do over here with the MAP clinic and Swim, which, by the way, we're starting to see more homeless come in and more drug problems come in as a result of that already since it's opened. They're planning on putting a psych ward, a temporary psych ward there for heavy psychotic types, from what I hear. I'm going to investigate that further. But that is not the place to be able to park these poor people that have, ruined their lives. Most of all, we need to intercept. We need to get our borders closed and put as much pressure on as humanly possible to get our borders closed and protect ourselves as a nation from all of these drugs coming in here and all of the illegal aliens that are being shipped across our country. It's terrible, and I realize that's a federal issue, but we can do something at a state level about that. We can have a bully pulpit and talk to our legislators there and push for it. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, we're not going to be able to afford Western State. It's an incredibly expensive facility, so we worked with the regionalization model, Kitsap, Jefferson, Clallam County, and your county commissioners are intimately involved, along with Wendy at Peninsula Behavioral Health. We're trying to get the services here locally. I don't get this hatred for the MAP clinic in Squim. I don't get the opposition. I never will. A health clinic to help people that we're worried about, people that are addicted and homeless. I also don't. When I was a county commissioner, we got pushback when Peninsula Behavioral Health would open up homes in the neighborhoods, and they opened one near my neighborhood, and my neighbors were like, "You gotta fight this." I'm like, "No, I'd rather they live in a home and get the treatment that they need," and Sherry knows what I'm talking about, versus wandering my neighborhood, not getting the help they need. So this pushback on helping people against clinics, how can you be against the MAC clinic? I don't get that. I'm about helping people. I'm about making sure folks can get the treatment they need, and I'd rather they get the treatment here locally where we can provide the services than ship them off to Western State, and it's too expensive. You can't afford it. We really can't. We're not going to be building new large mental health hospitals anymore in this state. It's all local, it's all regional, and it's all professionals.
Okay, we'll go to,
Can I respond to that?
you respond?
May I respond to that? Okay, I'll keep it short. I addressed the fentanyl subjects that are totally gone, but there are a lot of things that we can do at a local level for people that are involved with drugs and alcohol. And there's 12-step programs, there's our drug program. There are a lot of programs out there, both public and private, that need to be expanded upon to help these people get back on track and get their lives going in the right direction.
Okay, well, let's go to closing comments here, and Sue, we'll start with you, okay? 2 minutes.
I could have just stayed up here. I want to again thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you and share my thoughts. And I appreciate your questions, good questions. I am running to bring balance to the legislature. I think we badly, badly need it. I am running to promote certain issues, one of which is school choice. I'm a strong advocate for school choice. I think it will give us a good opportunity for some balance in the education system. And I'm an advocate for parents to be able to know what their kids are learning in school. Right now, they can't even see the curriculum. So that needs to change. There's quite a few things in education that need to be changed, and so this is one of my major issues. The budget, I think that we need to kind of look at how we budget in the state, and that would be, my preference would be a net zero budget, where the agencies come each time they bring the information about what they're going to spend and start from ground zero and say, okay, this is what we've done, this is what we need, and let the legislature have a little more control over what's going on in the agencies. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks. You guys are Kiwanians, and you're all about public service. And I've had a career, serving you as an elected official since 2001. And based on the primary results, 57%, I guess people kind of like that I am doing a good job. And I'm going to continue to work hard on these issues. I don't put my head in the sand and say that everything's fine. But you know what I love? I love this state. I love this district. And I love this town. And I've made it. I'm a Washingtonian, born and raised here. I raised my kids here. My wife runs a business here. We own real estate here. I believe in the future of Port Angeles. And I think that along the way we've invested dollars into this community in ways that other districts don't get the investment in. I'm proud of the work I did as your county commissioner. I'm proud of the work I do as your state representative. I'll continue to fight hard for this district. I got a whole list of budget issues down the road to help. We're going to help Brooke next year. We're going to get him some more money. We're going to finish that project. We're going to be damn proud of that waterfront center. Marine Fierro, they're going to be in line. They're next. You're going to see the kidney center is being built. We have a future here, and I reject that everything's bad. Washington was recently ranked number 2 in the nation by CNBC for business. Number 2. We were beat out by North Carolina. Number 2. It's not quite as bad as everybody wants to make out. Are there problems? Yeah. There always will be. Jesus said the poor will always be among you. He also said feed them, take care of them. I've made it my life's mission to do just that. Thanks.
Okay, well, let's give a nice round of applause for Tom Dorset. And I'm sure they'll hang around for a little bit here, just in case you've got some specific other questions. You can call them over in the corner or whatever. So, okay, Marty, back to you.